think of any kind of research, first of all, one thing comes in mind that how exactly I'm going to do this research. Means what will be my way, what kind of research type I'll select, what will be my method of sampling, what will be my population, and how I'm going to conduct, how I'll collect the data. And the topic today given to me is about types of research, methods of sampling, data collection, and its significance in research. So basically, I believe that doing research is a wonderful journey. And whatever tools we use for collecting the data or whatever way we select for conducting that research, that is very, very important, because when I select something for my research, that this type of research I'm going to do, or these students or these teachers, or they will be my sample. Actually, our research journey, the whole data collection journey is depend on what specifically we select for our research. So it is very, very important for a researcher that think on all these aspects in a holistic manner. Means all of us, we know that what research is and how we conduct it, what is the process. But in PhD particularly, PhD is, we are at such a stage that this research or this thesis will be there with us for lifetime. And that name or title of your research will be with you always, that you have done PhD on this particular topic. So selecting a correct type of research is very important. So let us see all these concepts one by one. The first thing, that is about types of research. There are many, many types of research, and what type you select, that is a crucial point. So here I have mentioned few research, that is major types. First is descriptive research. Second is analytical. Third is applied research. Fourth is basic research. Then quantitative research, qualitative research, conceptual research, non-scientific methods. There are many types about research.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to think that what exactly is my objective behind this research, and what is my mission, and what exactly I'm going to do. If we are very much clear about the idea that what I'm going to do in research, then we can select the type, and we can mix all this. Means we can mix and match 2 or 3 things. We can have qualitative and quantitative both. We can have applied research. We can use some conceptual research, even descriptive and qualitative, or descriptive and quantitative can be together. So it depends on the researcher that what kind of research we are selecting. So we will see all these types one by one. The first is descriptive research. And in descriptive, you already have heard about the surveys and facts finding inquiries of different kinds. Means whenever we conduct any survey, or we are trying to collect the data for our research, and the basic purpose of the description of the state of affairs as it exists in present, means we try to collect the present data, that what exactly is the situation. Take any research, and if you are doing a survey, that means you are collecting actually the factual information or the current information about that particular research. So researcher has no control over the variables. There might be some variables which we cannot control. Some natural calamities might be there, or COVID situation. Some researchers suffered because of that. So we can only say that this has happened or what is happening. We cannot change the situation. We just are collecting the factual information in descriptive research. Means just like we observe something and we describe it, or we observe something and we narrate a story. So in descriptive research, in similar way, we are actually describing whatever factual information or the fact information we have collected from our surroundings or from our samples. So it is very, very necessary to understand various kinds of types of research. Then some subdivisions of descriptive research are: first is survey research, then case study is there, correlational study is there, comparative study is there. Means if I am conducting only a survey and I'm collecting the data from my sample, so that is just giving a questionnaire to all the samples, and I'm filling that questionnaire and I'm collecting the data and analyzing it and doing it. It's done. But for case study, I have to go in detail. Means I have to see this history. I have to see the actual situations. I have to see the events happened in that person's or institution's life. We have to actually check in minute detail in case study. In correlational, we are actually relating two things or comparing two things, correlating two things. That is called as correlational study. And comparative is there are two variables or two things and we are comparing it. That will come under descriptive research in comparative study. So let us see what exactly is analytical. Analytical research actually involves in-depth study. I mean, there are many points in today's session. I'll be covering many points. So if you don't get something or if you have any queries, you can ask me in the end of the session. So in analytical research, it involves in-depth study and evaluation of available information in an attempt to explain complex phenomenon. Means we are actually analyzing something. The researcher has to use facts or information already available and analyze these to make a critical evaluation of the material. Here, the word critical evaluation is very, very important because whatever data we have collected, we are critically evaluating that data and we are trying to analyze that what exactly this data says and what is real situation or what is the fact. So we are critically evaluating the material in analytical research. Then again, in analytical, there are subdivisions like historical is there, philosophical research is there, review research is there, and research synthesis is there. So, my dear friends, there are many types of research. So, it is up to researcher. It is up to demand of your title and the objective of your research that you have to decide that what kind of type of research I'm going to adapt. You all might be knowing about applied or action research, where we actually find small solutions for day-to-day problems, finding a solution to an immediate problem. If I am a teacher in a class, I'm in a particular class, and I'm finding some difficulties in that particular class, and I conduct some research and I try to find out the solution for that immediate problem. So that is very much helpful, and we can do it with help of applied or action research. A research aims to find social or political trends that may affect a particular institution is an example of applied research. So marketing research, evaluation research, there are many, many types of it. So let us go to the next, that is basic, pure or fundamental research. And it is concerned with generalization and with the formulations of a theory. Means natural phenomenon and mathematics are examples of basic research. A researcher actually observes the natural phenomenon. We try to calculate. We use the mathematics. So finding information that has a broad base of application. So it is needed. Then quantitative research. In quantitative, the word itself says that it deals with numbers. And we can mix the quantitative and qualitative together. I'm going to tell you some examples of qualitative research also, that actually nowadays, if we conduct qualitative research, we get a very good result of it, but we must know the way of doing it. So based on measurement of quantity or amount, quantitative research is done. So weighing, measuring are examples of quantitative research. We actually measure the things. We deal with the numbers and we deal with the quantity. And in quantitative research, in numerical data is collected. Why it is called as quantitative? Most of the time, numerical data is collected. Very few descriptive data is collected in quantitative research. Then next type of research is qualitative research, which actually phenomena relating to quality or kind. Character, personality, and mankind are examples of variables used to measure qualitative research. And word association test, sentence completion test. We can use many tests, or we can use many tools for collecting the data for qualitative research. And qualitative research is actually we collect the qualitative information from our sample size. Then next is conceptual or experimental research. It is related to some abstract idea or theory. Like in science, we we try to assess the cause and effect. If this is the cause, then what is the effect of that? So it is actually depend on two variables, and it is very much necessary to do experiments to develop new concepts or to interpret existing ones. That means if you are trying to generate a theory, if you are trying to give some new idea, if you are trying to generate some new concepts and developing new concepts and interpret, or we can interpret the existing ones. There are many concepts around. And if you are doing it scientifically in experimental research, we interpret the existing ideas and attempt to establish cause and effect relationship is the main motto of experimental or conceptual research. So there is one more type, that is unscientific method of problem solving. So tenacity, cling to certain beliefs despite lack of evidence, superstitions, black cat bring bad luck. So there are some many funny concepts around. And intuition, considered to be common sense or self-evident, may be found to be false. Authority, reference to authority used as a source of knowledge. Means methods of problem solving in unscientific manner. In some researches, we use scientific method, and sometimes we have to use some unscientific methods to get the solution for that particular problem. So the rationalistic method, which derive knowledge through reasoning. Basketball players are tall. Haresh is a basketball player, therefore Haresh is tall. So this is an example of a rationalistic method. That means we try to derive the knowledge through reasoning. So this reasoning is this kind of questions were there in our schooling time. So basketball players are tall. Haresh is a basketball player, so Haresh is a tall. So this is just a reasoning. We create some knowledge. We create something out of that research. Then there is an empirical method which describes data or study that is based on objective observation. I'm just giving the gist of various types of research, means which kind of research you can conduct. So it is up to you, it is up to the researcher that what kind of research he or she wants to do. There are some other types of research like based on time, cross-sectional research, longitudinal research, means they have a base of time. Then based on environment, like field research is there, laboratory research is there. We need some particular environment for conducting that research. Means you are coming with some idea or you are doing some experiment and some innovation you are going to create. So for that purpose, you need certain laboratories. You have to work in that laboratory. You have to go in that particular environment. You have to collect the data. You have to analyze again. You have to do experiment. After experimenting, again analysis. So you need some laboratory framework for this kind of research that is based on environment. Then in field research, actually researcher goes in that like ethnography. For example, if I am doing a research on some tribal areas or some cultural groups or some traditional, we can say various festivals in India are celebrated in various states in a traditional way. If I want to do conduct a research for that particular community or that in that particular field, so I have to go to actual field. I have to stay with them. Being a researcher, I have to talk with them by taking their interviews, by collecting the information, by seeing the factual data available there, by looking at their history, by discussing with their day-to-day lifestyle. So based on environment, we can conduct some researches. Then clinical or diagnostic research, case study or in-depth approaches, mostly in medical field, or those researchers who want to do the detailed study, in-depth study. So they can go for clinical or diagnostic research. There is one more type, that is exploratory research. means hypothesis development rather than hypothesis testing. Means nowadays what we do is we prepare a proposal, and that research proposal we put some hypothesis, and after collection of data we actually analyze that and we try to test that hypothesis, and we say that this hypothesis is accepted or this hypothesis is rejected. So when we do that, but that is a very routine, we can say, a simple manner of conducting research. But in exploratory research, we develop hypothesis. Means we come to a conclusion that this hypothesis is developed, this part is significant, or female are having more awareness than males. So that means we are developing something out of that research, and we develop some hypothesis and we come to a conclusion with help of exploratory research. Then formalized research is one more type, where substantial structure and with specific hypothesis to be tested. Means we have a specific structure, and in that specific structure, specific hypothesis are tested in formalized research. There is one more type, that is historical research. Utilize historical sources to study events of the past. Means if I am conducting a research which is related to history, for example, history of ancient India, and I am trying to collect some information about that particular era or particular age, particular year, that means I am conducting a study of events they already happened in the past, and based on the historical sources available right now, I'm collecting the data, I'm doing the research, I'm interpreting it, I'm analyzing it, and that kind of research is called as historical research. Then conclusion oriented, that is picking a problem, redesign inquiry, and conceptualize. So conclusion oriented researches are also there, that you just pick a problem, that I'm facing this particular problem in the education field with my students, with my education system, with the syllabus, with whatever you want to do. You can redesign the inquiry and conceptualize them. So, and the last one is decision oriented. For the need for a decision maker, researcher cannot embark upon research his own inclination. So operations research means decision oriented, means you come to a certain conclusion that you have to take certain decision for something, and you use this decision oriented research. So these were all types. Let us now go to the sampling part. As you know that in the right hand side picture, I have mentioned that population is n and sample is for small n. So population is the whole community I am going to collect data from, and from that whole community or population, I select a sample. Like you can see in this big circle, there are many samples are there, and it's called as whole population. And that from whole population, I'm selecting few, and that is called as my sample. It is a process of selecting observations or sample to provide an adequate description and inferences of the population. And what exactly sample is? It is a unit that is selecting from population. Like you can see here in the picture that we select some unit. It represents the whole population and purpose to draw the inference. And we must think while selecting the sample, we must think on that whatever sample you are selecting, it should represent the whole population. It is very, very essential. So sampling framework is important, and in sampling on this slide, you can see that we want to get a sampling frame, and in that frame, what you want to talk about is sampling frame. Population is bigger than your sample size. And after sampling process, you have some particular methods of sampling. I'm going to tell that also. What you actually observe in the data, and we get a conclusion or we'll get a inferences for that. So it is important. Then let us go to the next part, that is sampling design process. Means first of all, researcher, as a researcher, what we have to do is we have to identify and define the population. For example, if I am conducting a research on 11 standard students in particular area or in particular district, so we have to decide the scope of our research. So all the 11 standard student of that particular district or particular state will be my population. But from that population, if they are 10,000 in number, what I will do is 10,000 is my population. So determine sampling frame. I will determine that randomly or if with some other means. There are some methods I'm going to tell that determine sampling frame and determine sampling procedure. So there are two ways, that is probability sampling and non-probability sampling. In probability, there are types like simple random sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, multi-stage sampling. What it is exactly, I'm going to explain it. And there is other part, non-probability sampling, in that convenient, judgmental, quota, snowball sampling. So they are non-probability sampling procedures. And we have to select any one of this, and with help of this sampling procedure, we will determine appropriate sample size and execute sampling design. It should be good representation, 10%, 20%, whatever your guide says, suggest, or whatever you think as per the need of your research. So simple random sampling, the best example here is, you can see in the picture, all subsets of the frame are given on equal probability, random number generations. Means I'm just selecting some random numbers, 20, 27, 29, 32, 40. Means I had this population from 1 to 48 is a population, and some random number generator, and I'm just selecting the equal probability of simple random sampling. In simple random sampling, actually it is a minimal knowledge of population needed, easy to analyze data, and some disadvantage it has, like low frequency of use, does not use researchers' expertise, and larger risk of random error. So these points also we have to think of while collecting the data from your particular sample or selecting your sample size. Then stratified sampling, the next type of sampling is stratified random sampling. In this, population is divided into two or more groups called strata, and subsamples are randomly selected from each strata. So list of clients, you can see in this example that there are some stratas, or we can say some sets of people. So population is divided into three groups here. And in those, from those three groups, I am selecting some strata. Means stratified random sampling is more systematic than simple random sampling. Then stratified is having some advantage, disadvantage. So you can see it your own way. Advantages of stratified are assures representation of all groups in sample population. Means we can get representation of all groups. Characteristics of each stratum can be estimated and comparisons made. Then disadvantages are requires accurate information on proportions of each stratum, and stratified list costly to prepare. Sometimes it is costly affair, and accurate, it requires accurate information on proportions of each stratum. It is essential. Then cluster sampling is there. Intentionally, I put some figure here. The population is divided into subgroups like clusters, like families. A simple random sample is taken from each cluster. So there are section 1, section 2, section 3, 4, section 5. And in red color, you can see in this picture that I'm selecting I'm selecting the sample from each cluster. So this is called as cluster sampling. I made clusters and I'm selecting some sampling. It can estimate characteristics of both cluster and population. And some disadvantage of cluster sampling are the cost to reach an element to sample is very high. Means we have to think upon this part that we have to go in that cluster, we have to select the sample. Each stage in cluster sampling introduces sampling error. The more stages there are, the more error there tends to be. So these are some advantages of cluster sampling. Then we have systematic random sampling. It is one of the best way of selecting your sample size. Means, order all units in the sampling frame. Then every nth number on the list is selected. N is equal to sampling interval. You can see in this picture that some people are standing and every third person is selected. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So every third person is selected, and this is called as systematic random sampling. So what is the difference in simple random and systematic random? In simple random, we were selecting the people by any number. There was no systematic way of selecting them. Any number we were selecting. But in systematic way of sampling, we select the every nth number and that list is selected with some interval. So this is the best way of selecting your sample. Some advantages of systematic random sampling are moderate cost, moderate usage, simple to draw sample, easy to verify, and disadvantages are periodic ordering required. So periodic ordering is required. There might be some going and here and there and there. So we have to take care of our population in a proper order, and after that we can select them. So there is one more type, that is multi-stage sampling. It is carried out in stages, various stages. That's why it is called as multi-stage sampling, using smaller and smaller sampling units at each stage. So primary cluster, you can see that in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 numbers are written over here. And on the right side, secondary cluster, 1 to 15 numbers are written. And in simple random sampling with secondary, that means we are selecting 2, 3 for 2. We are again selecting 3 for third. We are selecting 4 for 6, again 3, and for 7th, again 5. So using smaller sampling units as each stage. So every time the number is increasing, or we can select it at the stage wise with primary cluster and secondary cluster. This is called as multi-stage sampling. Let us go to the next. This thing, that advantages and disadvantages of multi-stage sampling. Multi-stage is actually more accurate and more effective. Disadvantages are costly. Each stage in sampling introduces sampling error. The more stages there are, the more error that tends to. So you have to think of error part also. Means if we make mistake of if there is a error in sampling, then your data, collected data may misguide you. Again and again you have to analyze it, and again you can have to go to the field and collect the data and again analyze it. So to avoid all those things, our sample size should be without error. It is very, very essential. So let us see some non-probability sampling, what exactly it is. In non-probability, the probability of each case being selected from the total population is not known. We don't know actually that who is going to get selected. Then units of the sample are chosen on the basis of personal judgment or convenience. And there are no statistical techniques for measuring random sampling error in a non-probability sampling. So we have to know there is no statistical technique for measuring random sampling error in a non-probability sample. In probability sampling, actually, There are some statistical techniques. Tomorrow, I'll be taking your session on data analysis and some statistical tools. I will show you the live demos that how actually we can analyze the data. And in that session, I will tell that how this sample works. Today only theory part I'll conduct, that what kinds of research are there and what are the sampling part. In tomorrow's session, I will tell you in detail with demonstration that how this statistical techniques works for sampling size. Then non-probability, first is convenience sampling, second is quota, then judgmental sampling, that is purposive sampling. Judgmental is also called as purposive, snowball sampling and self-selection sampling. So these are types of non-probability sampling. Let us see it one by one that what exactly it is. So if we see the convenience sampling, it involves choosing respondents at the convenience of the researcher. At the convenience of the researcher means if I am working in particular college, so I'll select the candidates or sample from my college, or I will select the sample from nearby college. So I am trying to make it more convenient. So if you are doing it with your convenience, that is, it has advantages like very low cost. You don't have to travel much. You don't have to go to different places. So the sample size is nearby. It is extensively used and or understood. So it is very simple to understand and extensively used. Most of the researchers, they use this kind of sampling, that is convenience sampling. Then disadvantages, variability and bias cannot be measured or controlled. For example, you are a teacher in that particular college and you are collecting data from your students. So you already know your students. You already know their nature. You already know their potential. So there might be some bias for that sample size. Then next disadvantage is projecting data beyond sample not justified. Means we can project some data which is beyond sample not justified. Means sample is saying something and you are actually giving some other idea in your research. So restriction of generalization is important here. So this is one of the disadvantage. So you can see in this picture. So the person, she is trying to say something, and if you want to make it more convenient, what you have to do, rather going on the first floor and shouting from there, you can come down to the ground floor and you can easily reach to the person. So that what does this picture says? It says that in convenience sampling, what is convenient to us, we try to get that way. So there might be different researchers that they might be having different convenient ways. So next is quota sampling. And in quota sampling, the population is first segmented to collect the data from subgroups. And here also, in this kind of sampling, that is quota sampling, the whole population is first segmented into mutually exclusive subgroups, just as stratified sampling. And we try to collect the data. So advantage here are used when research budget is limited, very extensively used, understood, no need for list of population elements. And some disadvantage are variability and bias cannot be measured, controlled, time consuming, and projecting data beyond sample not justified. Then you will ask me that what should be the ideal one? All are ideal and all are not ideal. That will be my answer. It depends on your research need, that what is needed and what kind of research you are doing. Type of research is important here. If your research is quantitative, your sample size. If your research is qualitative, your sample size will be different. So depending on the need of your research, we select the sampling way, sampling method. Then, if we see here, okay, judgmental sampling. In judgmental sampling, researcher employs his or her own expert judgment about, and there is an assurance of quality response, meet the specific objective. This researcher, as an expert, he or she gives the expert judgment about, and we select the sample. So I decide that I will select only these kind of students, only intelligent students, or students who are extrovert, or students who can give me answers easily. So that is not the correct way, because some disadvantage are biased selection of sample may occur. Time consuming process it is. Let us go to the next, that is snowball sampling. In snowball, the research starts with a key person and introduce the next one to become a chain. Means one person said something and he is like passing the parcel. The researchers start with a key person and introduce the next one to become a chain. And in that chain system, we come to the next, we go to the next, we go to the next. So next person suggest some other person, we go to the next, like in interview process. Means we are taking somebody's interview and we ask that person that who is the expert in this field. And he suggests some name and we go to the next person and we conduct his interview. Then that person will suggest somebody else's name and we go to that next person and we conduct his or her interview. So this is snowball sampling, and low cost, useful in specific circumstances and for locating rare population. And disadvantage are not independent, projecting data beyond sample, not justified. So these are some of the disadvantages of snowball sampling. Then self-selection sampling. In self-selection, it occurs when you allow each case, usually individuals, and to identify their desire to take part in the research. Means each case, usually individual. Self-selection sampling means researcher decides that this will be my sample, and advantages are more accurate, useful in specific circumstances to serve the purpose, and some disadvantages are more costly due to advertising, and mass are left. So these are some of the disadvantages of this type. There are again, as I told you, some sampling errors are there, and due to these sampling errors, we sometimes we may get wrong information from some people, and while analyzing we come to know about it. Again we have to go revisit the sample size, again collect the data, and we come to a conclusion. So that is the case. Then in sampling errors, the errors which arise due to the use of sampling surveys are known as the sampling errors. So two types of sampling errors. First is biased error due to selection of sampling technique. Size of the sample is important here. And second is unbiased error, random sampling errors. Differences between the members of the population included or not included. So we have to avoid the sampling errors while selecting our sample, or our method should be like that. So methods of reducing sampling errors. First is specific problem selection. Being a researcher, you decide that what exactly is the problem. Be specific for it. Select the specific problem. That is most essential. Then and then only you can reduce the sampling error. Then second is systematic documentation of related research. Whenever you are conducting research, you have to document it very systematically. So systematic documentation is essential, and if you document it systematically, we can actually reduce the error. Next is effective enumeration. Whatever Numericals you are presenting. For example, you are making an Excel sheet, you are projecting the data, you are making the graphs, you are making the charts. So it should be very effective. Effective pre-testing means some sample size should not be biased. They should not have any prejudice in mind. They should not be known that what exactly you are going to do. The questions in the tool should not be known to them. So effective pre-testing actually reduces the sampling errors. Then controlling methodological bias means if you have selected certain method of doing your research, so you should have a proper control on that method. You should know exactly what this method says. You should know how I'm going to implement it for my research. You should know that exactly how this method is going to take me towards my correct conclusion. So that is essential. Then selection of appropriate sampling techniques. So there are many sampling techniques, some random sampling, non-random sampling, probability sampling techniques are there, and non-probability sampling techniques. So being a researcher, you have to decide that what sampling technique you are going to use, and it should be appropriate to your research. Some non-sampling errors refers to biases and mistakes in selection of sample. So causes for non-sampling errors are sampling operations, inadequate of response, misunderstanding the concept, lack of knowledge. You might be knowing all this because in master's degree, while doing the small research, we know all this. Concealment of the truth and loaded questions, processing errors and sample size. All these are causes for non-sampling. Then next part in today's presentation is research design. That what exactly with help of type of research. If we select the type of research, if we select the correct sample size from our population, we decide that what will be my research design, because it is actually a blueprint of your research. If it refers to the plan, structure, and strategy of research, the blueprint that will guide the research process. Means your research design reflects, it shows that how your research will look, how you are going to do your research. So the process of actual whole research depends on your research design. So here I have taken few quantitative. It has two parts, that is interpretive, understanding a situation from the participant perspective, and second is critical, that is understanding and critiquing power within society. So in interpretive, again there are three parts. One is phenomenological, second is ethnographic, and third is grounded theory. So qualitative research has wonderful designs, wonderful methods. So phenomenological is one thing, I'll tell you in detail. And critical has action research and case studies. So this will go under qualitative. And if we are conducting a research where mixed method design is there, means you have to decide your design first. That my design will be qualitative, quantitative, where qualitative is more dominant and quantitative is less, or quantitative is dominant and qualitative is less, or qualitative and quantitative both are at equal level. Means 50-50%. I am using qualitative and quantitative both. So if I am using, it should be very clear in our mind before deciding the method of our research or deciding the design of our research, that I am going to do my research in this particular way. So quantitative will be more, or qualitative will be more, or it will be equal. So it is called as mixed method designs. So which are the skills necessary to use effective research design? So it is for a researcher, it is very essential to know various skills, because doing research is a scientific method. It is a scientific way of doing research, and Every researcher should possess some skills and qualities for doing effective research design. So, what is effective research design? Guiding principle for effective control of variances and thus effective research design is the max min con principle. Max min con means max is maximize systematic variance. It should be done in a very systematic way. Second is minimize error variance. We have to minimize the errors. And third is control variance of nuisance or extraneous or extragenous. Means we have to control the variance of nuisance. There might be some external factors. They can create some nuisance and they can actually waste some time or energy while collecting the data. So we have to apply this max min con principle. So effective research design actually is a function of adequate variability in values of research variables. There should be full range of variability in values of research variables. Precise and accurate measurement. It should be very precise. It should not be very scattered and vague. It should be accurate and very precise. Identifying and controlling the effects of confounding variables and appropriate subject selection. These are the essential factors. Then what is set of advanced decisions that make up the master plan specifying the methods and procedures for collecting and analyzing the needed information. So research design actually is very, very essential, which makes your master plan and it specifies your research. Why research design important? Why it is so important? Because we saw some types of research, we saw the sampling techniques. Now we are looking at research design. And good research design is the first rule of good research. Knowledge of the needed research design allows advanced planning so that the project may be conducted in less time and typically at a cost savings due to efficiencies gained in pre-planning. So it is essential to know. So what is the objective behind that? First is to gain background information and to develop hypotheses. So if we get the background information and our hypotheses are developed, we get a clear idea that our research will go in which direction. So setting the right direction for our research is very, very important. To measure the state of a variable of interest, we have to measure the state of a variable of interest. And to test hypotheses that specify the relationship between two or more variables is essential. Research design, a caution is, it's important to understand, by conducting one research project, we learn that we may need additional research, which may result in using multiple research designs. It is very funny, but we have to adapt it. We have to accept it. Means we learn that we need additional research, which may result in using multiple research designs. Then sometimes we have to adapt some multiple research designs. And while conducting research, while collecting data, we come to know, no, this thing is missing. I have to do this thing again. So many times we do some changes, we do corrections, we try to minimize the errors, and we end up with using multiple research design. Now let us part that is data collection and its significance in research. Means the topic today given to me is, and the next part in my topic is data collection and its significance in research. About data collection, means after data collection, how to analyze it, how to interpret it, how to make their tables. Tomorrow I'm going to conduct a detailed session with demonstration. So today we will discuss about data collection and its significance in research. So what is data and data collection? Fundamentally two types of data: quantitative, numbers, test, counting, measuring. Means where we are collecting the numbers. That these many teachers are using technology, and we come to a percentage. We calculate mean, median, mode, standard deviation. We again try to put it in skewness or kurtosis, that where it is moving. Then we draw confusion with quantitative data, that what is the exact percentage for which variable, and we try to deal with numbers. Then next is qualitative, which actually deals with words, images, observation, conversation, photographs, many things. So qualitative involves these type of data. So fundamentally, there are two types of data, quantitative and qualitative. So our tools actually, if we prepare some tool, any questionnaire or rating scale or interview scale or any other tools, observation tools, checklist. So based on those data collection tools, we collect quantitative or qualitative data. Again, there are different ways of analyzing it. Quantitative data we can put in Excel sheet. We can use some software like SPPS or R software. There are many softwares coming up, but I will show you simple way of analyzing data tomorrow. And in that quantitative data, we actually analyze with help of numbers. And in qualitative, we come to a conclusion with some images, some photographs, observations, conversations, and in qualitative descriptive manner, we get the data and we try to analyze it. Some data collection techniques are few examples I'm showing you, that is observations. We actually observe our sample and we draw a conclusion. Then some test, like there are many n number of tests in research. There are many surveys. We can create any kind of tool like rating scale, observation schedule, checklist, yes, no type question, multiple choice questions, and there are various ways of conducting this test and surveys. We can nowadays we are collecting online. So earlier it was only offline mode of collecting the data. Now we are using online mode also. Document analysis, the research literature means we try, if in a historical research specifically or in case studies, we get some research literature and we try to document it and we analyze it. Then in quantitative methods like experiment, research situation with at least one independent variable which is manipulated by the researcher. So precision versus accuracy. If you see in this figure, you can see some arrows. They are on the right, we can say target. So we have to think of the target. And if we are very much accurate, we reach to our goal. So hitting that correct target is essential in data collection. Or sometimes what happens, we collect the data, we prepare a tool, we do validity, reliability, then we collect the data, and while interpreting it or while analyzing it, we come to know that this data is not accurate or there are some errors in it. So we have to find out the solution for that again, and we have to recollect the data with a different sample size or same sample size. So avoiding all those errors, accuracy is very important in data collection. So here in this picture, you can see the first left-hand side, that is both accurate and precise. All the arrows are on the target. They are accurate and precise. Right-hand side, second figure, accurate but not precise. They are accurate. They are very near to target, but they are not precise. They are scattered. Then on the third figure, left-hand side down, not accurate but precise. Means they are precise. They are very disciplined manner. They are in a very accurate but not accurate. Means they are not on the accurate target. They are out of the target. And the fourth is neither accurate nor precise. So in data collection, we have to follow both accurate and precise way of collecting the data. And quantitative research approach, actually quantitative data analysis is the easier one. Why I'm saying easier one? Because you get the numbers and you are not biased about the numbers. You can't be. But in qualitative, when we get some facts, we get some researches, we get some documents, and every person's interpretation about that data might be different. So in qualitative, there might be many errors or researcher may become biased while interpreting. But in quantitative, we cannot be biased because numbers do not lie. Numbers tell the accurate thing. That is, one means one, two means two. It is accurate thing. So qualitative research, quantitative is much easier to analyze. Then steps in quantitative studies. You all know this. I'm just going through it quickly. Define a research problem question. You decide the problem of your research. Review the literature. Formulate hypothesis or refine question. Make operational definition. Design or select instruments for data. Obtain ethical approval. Collect data. Analyze data. Interpret findings. Refer to literature again and determine implications and draw conclusions. This I have taken from Pearson Education, Canada. So they have given this steps in quantitative studies. But if we see, let me go to the previous one. In this figure, I have tried to tell you the steps in quantitative and qualitative studies. So on left hand side, quantitative, it is a linear way and qualitative is a cyclical way. In quantitative, as it is linear, that it goes in the same direction. Define a research problem, review the literature, formulate, the things are same. But you can actually see the difference in quantitative and qualitative. That qualitative is cyclical one, where we select the social content and research. We explicate researchers' belief, then obtain ethical approval. We select the participants, that means sample size. We collect empirical data in the field. We analyze the data. Concept formation and modification is there. Then we establish some scientific rigor of findings, review literature, determine implication, draw conclusion, write final report. And while establishing scientific rigor of findings, we find some errors, we again revisit and we again collect the data and we again try to analyze it. Here is some hypothesis generation might be there, or theory development is there, description is there in qualitative. So qualitative is always a cyclical process. And while collecting the data, in data collection, we have to take care of this. Because quantitative is a linear one, so we go in a linear direction. And we don't have to worry and we don't have to again revisit the sample and collect the data. So this is the major difference in quantitative and qualitative way. And qualitative research approach, as I told earlier, that there might be some errors, there might be some biases, some prejudices about the facts. So we have to take care of while interpreting the data. So core activities in qualitative research are literature review, then explicating researchers' beliefs. These are the points. I will not explain or elaborate in detail, as all of you already know it. And as you know, that qualitative is having multiple realities while quantitative is having single reality. Like it gives only numbers. So there is only single reality. But in qualitative, if data is in description based, so that description can have different meanings. So there can be multiple realities. In qualitative, reality is socially constructed. In quantitative, reality is objective. Here, reality is context interrelated, and in quantitative, reality is context free. Qualitative is more holistic, and quantitative is reductionist. These are very important points to understand. And if we understand it, it will be very easy for us while collecting the data. Then strong philosophical perspective is there in qualitative, and in quantitative, strong theoretical base is there. Here in qualitative, reasoning is inductive, and here reasoning is deductive and inductive, both. In qualitative, discovery of meaning is the basis of knowledge, and here cause and effect relationship are the basis of knowledge. Qualitative develops a theory, and quantitative tests theory. Means theory is already developed by somebody, and we try to test it. We accept or we reject the hypothesis, and we come to a conclusion that this is real or this is not real. And in qualitative, we generate some hypothesis, we come up with some innovation, we come up with some theories. So this is a major. So try that which kind of thing, and accordingly you have to collect the data for your research. Here, in quantitative research design is specified before the start of the investigation, and here research design is flexible and develops throughout the investigation. I mean, researcher can have that flexibility and we can develop it throughout the investigation. In quantitative, study of behavior is in natural or artificial setting, and in qualitative, study of behavior is in the natural setting. Then in quantitative, rely on research design and data gathering instruments to come to terms with procedural bias, and in qualitative, rely on the researcher to come to terms with procedural bias. Then in general framework, if we see the research tools and techniques, after selection of your sample, after decision of your data collection, sampling, and your type of research is decided, then you have to think on which research tools and techniques you are going to adapt for your research. That is, it will be a questionnaire or interview schedule, or observation or checklist. There are many ways of collecting the data, because interview and observation can be used in qualitative research, and researchers' physical presence is needed there for this kind of research. And in qualitative, it can be phenomenological, ethnographic, grounded theory, historical, case study, and action research. And in data collection, the significance of in research is very, very essential, because which kind of research you have selected, that is important to know. So if you have selected phenomenological, so data collection can be by interviews, because and data analytics process simultaneously search for themes and patterns. In phenomenological process, you actually go to the people, your sample size, and you collect the data by taking the interview. In ethnography is a study, actually I have told earlier, as some cultural groups, or you are collecting data from some communities, and systematic collection and analysis of data about cultural groups. So goal here is grasp patterns of people in their familiar environment and subjects entire culture or subgroup of the culture. So ethnographic study actually requires a data collection in a very systematic way, because in ethnography, researcher actually go to that community, stay with them, and being a observer, he collects the data from that culture and analyzes it. In ethnographic, researcher live with subjects, become part of their culture, simultaneous data collection and analysis. In ethnography, participant observation and key informant interviews. So it's very, very essential to know that how we collect the data in which type. Then grounded theory, it is given by and Strauss, inductive and deductive approaches. We can use inductive approach or deductive approach of data collection. Means we collect the numerical data and we make a conclusion, or we make a conclusion by talking to them, and we try to make its parts and we create some hypothesis. So it depends that which inductive or deductive method we use for collection of data. Then grounded theory in it is a simultaneous data collection and analysis, field setting, contrast comparison theory developed, and theory grounded in data from which it was derived. Then sampling in grounded theory studies, purposeful sampling we can use purposefully. We can decide that this will be my sample. Then diversity rather than similarity is important here, and shed new light on phenomenon. So historical, you might be knowing data collection, primary, secondary sources, documents, relics, artifacts, and we do the data analysis with help of all these primary and secondary sources. Then evaluating data in historical studies, like external criticism, authenticity of data, internal criticism, accuracy of data. So this is essential here. And need, I think it's not part of my today's topic given to me. In case study, in depth exam, we In-depth examine. We go to people, we select the sample, we go to the group of people, or if the case study is about the institution, we observe it, we try to collect the facts about that institution. Some events happened there, history of that institution, history of the people, and we try to. Somebody is talking. Just let me mute them. Okay. Then in case study, again, in qualitative, interest in meaning of experiences to subjects themselves, and in quantitative, generalized results. So these are two parts important in case study. And case study data collection can be done questionnaire, interview, observation, written account by participants, and content analysis, search for patterns and themes. We can use this for data collection. Then in action research, improve practice, study effect of action taken. So these are the main goals here. And one particular hospital or healthcare setting, if we try to take example and know to generalize findings. So these are important part. So what is the role of researcher here? Important. Is the instrument for data collection. Means is your instrument is collecting the correct data you want to collect. Sometimes you collect something else and your research objective is saying something else. It should not happen. So our role being researcher is our instrument should be correct after data collection. It establishes good rapport with participants. We have to, because we are a main part of research, explicates beliefs through bracketing. The meaning of the lived experiences is interpreted from the participant stories. So being a researcher, we have to understand all these things. So quantitative research report writing and qualitative research report writing, and report writing conclusion is that based on your type of research, based on your design, based on your sampling, based on your data collection techniques, based on your tools, you have to write the report. And review is also important. Method is also important. Results, how you are going to refer it. And in conclusion, I would like to say that quantitative and qualitative, both the researchers are good. They should go hand in hand. So there will be no bias. If there is some error, you can minimize the error. And after conducting a research, you will feel the power to create in just one action. So that your one action is very, very important. So the topic given to me today was about the types of research, sampling, and data collection and its significance in the research. So being a researcher, we already know that what exactly the research is. We know all the philosophical basis of the research. But at the same time, we should understand what is the ground reality behind it and what exactly we are going to measure through our research. So, for example, if my objective says something and I have decided that these are the assumptions and these are the hypotheses of my research, and while selecting the sample, while selecting the tool, and after designing my whole research, in the data collection, my tools should collect that particular data, what is needed for my research. We should not get the extra stuff. Extra data collection is not needed. Sometimes we collect data of 10,000, 20,000 people. What is the big deal in that? What is more important is accuracy of the research. So having the accuracy, having the particular things, because I always believe that after completion of our PhD, we come to know that what exactly research is. We don't know research till we complete our research, because in process we learn many things, and process is more important, my dear friends. Because I believe that while conducting research, it is a very painful process sometimes, because we have to deal with so many things. You are working people, you are doing job somewhere, you are meeting your guides, you are following all the university regulations. Right now, you are doing this coursework. Some people might be just log in and they are somewhere else. So So they're not listening at all. So this might happen. I know this is a part of this, but having it mandatorily is a different story. But at the same time, being a researcher, if I really want to conduct a research in a way it should be conducted, first try to imbibe those all qualities of a good researcher, and let us find out the correct methodologies for my particular research, the correct way of sampling, selecting sampling for my research, the correct research design for my research. Because you only can decide that what is right for your research. Nobody else can, because you are the creator of that thesis. You are the creator of that whole process. Because this process is very much painful, I know, because while collecting the data, it's not very easy job. And after collection of data, we come up with so much data and we don't know what to do about it, what to do, how to go about it. Then we ask some friends, we ask them that take this data, analyze it, and give me some charts. That is not the way. So in tomorrow's session, we will actually learn that which are the data analysis techniques, and I'll show you on Excel sheet that how you can analyze the data. And it's very simple. It's very simple that how to analyze. We don't need big packages of SPSS and R software. There are many software. Thank you so much.